Hi folks, I wanted to share just a quick vlog on some ways to think about answering question 1 for task 3, which is rubric 11. Rubric 11 is a little bit dicey because it's analyzing the focus learner's performance. So I just want to go over what's in my draft document, which is in my course, which is you can look at my linked tree to find access to any of this if you are interested in it. But I hope this is useful to you. So first of all, you want to identify the lesson and objective and any related documents. These are important because this is what you're telling the reviewer. This is where you're tracing your analysis across these documents. And a lot of times people sort of don't do this in a clear way. Next, you're going to talk about their baseline score, their summative scores, and any scores along the way. Now, it doesn't have to be scores. It can be a formative assessment, an exit ticket. But I think what's important is you talk about the skill. Now, a baseline might have a skill and a sub-skill or more, and it'll have a score. So if this is a challenging, for a student, it's in their wheelhouse, not too challenging, but not too easy. Say they got 2 out of 5. And on their summative, they got a 5 out of 5. But in between, you would have seen a transition in how they were handling that particular skill. So you might point out what artifact that skill is on and what you noticed that the student did differently from the baseline. Maybe you provided a support and they accessed that support and therefore they scored a little bit higher. Maybe they had solidly learned a certain concept or skill and they were able to apply that on their own without any supports based on your lesson. And so you can see that in the homework or the exit ticket or assignment and so forth. So you're tracing across, and you want to trace an analysis across all 3 lesson objectives, at least one skill or sub-skill from all lesson objectives. That's really key for lesson 11 or rubric 11. A lot of times just taking one example and doing it thoroughly is enough in, I would say, all the other rubrics, but in this one, that's not the case. You have to do it across all lesson objectives. And there's an example there of, I'll pause this for a minute. You can stop the video and look at that and see how I filled it out sort of sketchily. But then I just want to show you 2 different ways to analyze the focus learner's performance. So one method here is my simpler version, which just looks at their strengths as you've looked across all those artifacts and noticed what they're doing well. And then you talk about how your teaching made use of that strength. You can look at what they struggled with and what type of support did you provide them. So for instance, maybe they had a hard time using certain technical words in their writing that you were requesting them to do, and they would sort of lose the definitions, and you might have a word wall to support them. And then, how did you up the challenge if a student was easily answering the question? That's another piece that they ask you to document. Another way to look at this in a little bit more detail is to, again, go to each lesson and look at the objectives, and then ask what strengths did the student have that supported their achievement in lesson 1, and then, how did you, and what strengths developed over the course of lesson 1, for instance, that they didn't have to start. What needs were to start, what needs continued. What kind of errors were they making at the beginning? Also, I know how to spell, and we're not asking them to fall in love, are we? Errors, also spelling. Did they make it to start, and what changes to their error pattern continued? And then what I'm asking you to do is, and I'll fix this, is how did your plan support to then change the kind of errors the student was making? Use the specific artifacts as evidence. So you might show how you provided a graphic organizer and then they weren't making that specific error anymore, or you gave them a strategy and that fixed it, or they finally understood a concept. So that would come from your teaching, and that wouldn't be a support, but you could now show that as a strength that they used. You want to reference your specific artifacts, not everything you did with the student, but just the ones that you document. This is on my video. It's in my video course in a lot of detail. How did your supports help the student have their needs met while they were trying to answer? So again, a wall chart, if they had a hard time recalling terms, met their need for, if they had an issue with memory recall, and yet, it's not recall that you wanted to focus on, but their use of those terms and their ability to articulate and discuss them or use them in an appropriate way. How did your supports help the student access their strengths for successful assessment questions? So in all the lesson objectives, you want to answer, again, across all of them. And then I have, so I'm also showing you that you want to connect the student's needs and strength with the support you gave, the detailed evidence of the changes, and how your support produced that evidence of the changes. So I'm discussing that here. And then I have sort of a write-up where I use that color coding to show you how you might say that, both filled in and in blank form. So I hope this is helpful. See you around at the next vlog.